You're looking for some class setups? I got some class setups. I'm going to be sharing 8 in this video, 1 for each of the launch assault rifles. I'll walk you through some of my attachment choices, why I'm picking them over some other attachments. I actually haven't done like a favorite class share video since Call of Duty Ghosts, I believe. So I'm actually looking forward to doing this. So before we jump into any class, I got to share with you my mindset when creating classes, because this may differ from what you like to prioritize. I like to prioritize recoil control, aim down sight speed, and sprint to fire speed. I don't really care for anything that has to do with hip fire or aim down sight strafe speed, at least when it comes to assault rifles. So most of the attachments you're going to see me pick and the tunings that I do will be neglecting those stats. By the way, if you want to see any of these class setups in action, check out my worst to best video and the other videos I'll have linked in the description. Make sure you click like on this video and don't forget to consider subscribing to the channel. But we're going to start off with the Kastov-74u here, which is one of the best weapons that are in the game currently. This weapon excels in close to mid-range combat and has a 3-shot kill potential in its closest range. So immediately what I like to do is throw on one of these 2 suppressors right here that will help extend my damage range while also helping with some recoil and bullet velocity issues. I'll pair this with the BR209 barrel to make the weapon more snappy when it comes to aim down sight speed, and it will move faster. I will also throw on the VLK stockless stock, which I think is a staple attachment for this. It improves so many handling stats while having downsides for stats that don't really matter for this particular setup. I'll also pair this with this Schlager laser sight to help with aim down sight speed a little bit, and then I'll use the Merc foregrip underbarrel to help with some recoil and hipfire issues if I ever get into hipfire situations. And that's the class setup. If you feel like this has a little bit too much recoil, you could swap the barrel for the short tack 330mm. I feel like this smooths out recoil and makes this thing pretty usable at all ranges. It's just not as snappy and agile as the BR209 barrel. Also for the muzzle, I'll mention this because this applies to all of the assault rifles. If you don't have a specific muzzle unlocked, all these muzzles that improve your vertical and horizontal recoil control, I've been liking as well. I particularly was using the Sock and Tread 40 on this AK-74u for a while, but ultimately decided on the Harbinger. As for the rest of the loadout, I mean, secondary, you can use whatever. I've just been using this beta pistol. I'll use the flash and the drill charge. The drill charge is an amazing piece of lethal equipment in this game. My perk package, I usually got Scavenger, Battle Hardened, Fast Hands, and Ghost because of all the UAV spam that's in this game right now. If it's more of an objective mode and there's a lot more nades, I'll swap Scavenger for Bomb Squad, but otherwise, that's pretty much my go-to perk setup. And as for field upgrades, I'm usually rocking Field Upgrade Pro with the portable radar, as well as Dead Silence if I need to move around the map without being noticed. Next up is the Kastov-74u. Now, this weapon is horrible in close quarters combat if you didn't see my worst to best, but it is great in mid to long range combat, actually one of the best assault rifles when it comes to long range time to kill. So I'll try to optimize for recoil and range. So this barrel I use is the Kastov-74u. You could go with this chonky barrel that helps with recoil control as well, but it makes the weapon even more sluggish, so I've just settled on the 406. For muzzle, I will use the RF Crown 50, which is one of those horizontal and vertical recoil muzzles. For my stock, I'll use this first one here, the RPK factory stock. Seems like one of the best that helps with reducing recoil, although it slows you down a bunch, but this weapon's already going to lose in close quarters gunfights, so my handling speeds aren't much of a concern. Ideally, I'm going to be using this at long range, so I like to use an optic. You can choose whatever. I use this DF105 reflex. And lastly, I'll use this OLEV laser that helps with this naturally slow aim down sight speed, which is going to be even slower by all these other attachments, and it will help with your recoil a little bit by improving the aim down sight stability. That wraps up the 545. Moving on to the M4, which is like your jack of all trades weapons. The big issue with this for me is recoil. So I got to put on this high tower 20 barrel to help with recoil as much as possible. Also give this a boost to bullet velocity and range to improve time to kill. As for muzzle, I'll be using the F-Tech Castle Comp, which is one of those horizontal vertical recoil. I'll also throw on the Socken SZ grip to help with recoil control, and the Demo D50 buffer tube, which similar to the 74u improves a lot of handling speeds while not harming your recoil too much, at least with the other attachments. Lastly, I like to throw on a sight on this. I like to use this Cronin Mini Red Dot on my M4. The STB-556 is similar to the 74u in that it specializes in close to mid-range combat and has a special 3-shot kill range that I want to extend as much as possible. This also has SMG equivalent sprint to fire time, so I like to make this snappy as well. So for my barrel, I'll be throwing on this 508mm rear guard. This will improve my range and bullet velocity as well as hip fire accuracy if I'm going to be up close and personal shooting with this. For muzzle, I go with another of the same exact muzzle. This one is the RF Crown 50 on this weapon. No need to explain that again. For the grip, I like the extended drop grip. This increases the aim down idle stability and my hip fire accuracy at the cost of walking speed, which I don't really care for. I'm not walking around, usually I'm sprinting around. So that's kind of an all pros, no cons attachment in my mind. And for the stock, I like this Bruin MX9 stock. It harms recoil control a little bit, but helps with movement and handling speeds when I'm trying to be aggressive with this. Last but not least, I use this VLK laser that helps with sprint to fire and aim down sight speed, as well as some recoil at the cost of being visible to enemies. Luckily, I'm not aim down sight much with this. I'm not using it at long ranges. I'm just snapping in and out like I would with an SMG. Next up, TAC-556. This is a very accurate weapon. It is a beast at all ranges, but you got to make sure you're hitting upper chest shots with it, so I like to optimize for recoil control. No surprise, we got the second tread muzzle on for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. Same story with this Demo 44 grip attachment, as well as the Tactique Brooke stock. I'm trying to get this recoil control as smooth as possible. I also will use the Schlagerpe, I don't know how you pronounce that, this laser sight that helps with aim down sight speed at no cost because we are harming aim down sight speed significantly with those 3 attachments. And I don't use a barrel on this, so I actually opt for an optic, and I use this SZ Mini Tac 40 because this is what came with the blueprint that I started using this weapon with.
It's over 9,000!
Like and subscribe. I felt like I needed to say that here to break up the monotony. This is feeling very repetitive. I'm not sure how this video is going to end up in the edit, but we're experimenting here. But anyway, next up we have the Lockman 556. This weapon is one of these slower killing weapons in the game, but it's very accurate. You probably could tune this to be a bit more quicker because it has good recoil, but I just like to stack a bunch of recoil attachments on this just to make this thing as easy as possible. Usually when I'm using the Lockman, I just want to just get easy kills and just go about my day with it. I like to use this OLEV laser to help with aim down sight speed if I do get caught off guard, but mostly I'm using this at range, so it helps with recoil a little bit, and the laser's not that big of an issue if people can see it at range. My underbarrel, I like to use one of these all pros attachments. Where are you at? The Shark Fin 90. It helps with aiming idle stability, aka recoil a little bit. No downside, so why not throw on there? And again, usually I'm using this at range, so I like to throw on, wow, I stopped on that perfectly, the VLK 4.0 optic. It's like an ACOG optic. A little easier to use at range. Again, this weapon isn't really that competitive. This is just more like a chill weapon. That's why I got it loaded out like this. M16 time. I actually have 2 classes for this weapon. It did get buffed recently since I reviewed it in my worst to best and its individual episode, but a lot of the class principles still apply. You still want to maximize for recoil because you need to hit all 3 shots in a burst to get a 1 burst kill with this and just to even do fine with this weapon. Now this first class is more for close quarters, mid-range engagements. I like to use this 11.5-inch carbon shroud barrel. Gives you recoil control, bullet velocity, and aim down sight speed, which are all nice because this weapon has the slowest aim down sight speed in class. The only con on this attachment that's somewhat concerning is damage range, but again, this is more for closer quarters combat. Try to get just 1 burst kills with the M16 because it just gets harder to use the further out you are at range. Once again, I'll have the second Tread 40 muzzle here to help with the recoil a little bit, but the rest of the attachments are all going to be catering towards sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. We got the X10 grip here and the Ravage 8 stock. Lastly, I'll round this out with an optic of your choice. Like the M4, I like the Cronin Mini Dot. If you want more of a long-range M16, you can try out the other carbine shroud barrel, which will improve your recoil control and bullet velocity, which is important at range. I'll also use this Harbinger silencer to help with damage range and bullet velocity and recoil control. This Corio stock is one of those heavy-duty stocks that will greatly increase your recoil control. Again, this is a long-range gun, so I got this bullseye optic on here. It's a 6x zoom, which is a little bit much, but I really like the reticle that's included on this, so I settled on using it on this. And to wrap this off, I got this OLEV laser on here. Again, this is at range like the Lockman. I don't really care too much about that laser being visible.
Bruh.
Last but not least, that brings us to the best gun in the game, the Kastov-74u. This gun is a melt machine. It has a bit of kick, so you want to optimize for recoil, and it has a slower than average aim down sight speed, so you want to help that out if you can. My barrel of choice would be this first barrel here, the Kaz-10. However, I do not have this barrel unlocked. I'm currently in a private match doing these classes. That's why I can equip this right now. But yeah, I don't have this unlocked. So what I've settled on instead is the Kaz-7 barrel. These two barrels do essentially the same thing. The only difference is the Kaz-10 will increase your damage range and it's a bit slower, where the Kaz-7 will decrease your damage range and it's a little bit faster. So I lean towards Kaz-10 but don't have it unlocked, so Kaz-7 it is. As for the muzzle, I use the Bore 490. Demo Imp 44 for the underbarrel. The stock is that heavy duty RPK factory stock. And last but not least, I got this however you pronounce it, all aim down sights pro laser sight, just to help with aim down sight speed a little bit.
Let's go.
So those are my favorite loadouts for every single assault rifle in Modern Warfare 2. Every gun isn't optimally tuned. I don't really care to do that in this game since there's no in-game stats, but I did try to cater to most of the weapon strengths when I make these builds. Everyone has their personal preferences. This should be a great starting point. I just personally don't care for things like strafe on assault rifles. If I want to be aggressive and, you know, be strafing on people, I'm going to bust out a SMG in Modern Warfare 2. So hopefully y'all enjoyed. I'm curious to hear any feedback on the format of this video or classes in general. I was kind of just winging this as I go. Hopefully it turns out pretty decently. But yeah, don't forget to tap like on this video, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.